Hello, a very good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Malhotra's IAS. Today is Saturday and my name is Madhusudan Reddy and we'll be taking up the current affairs for the weekend, that is miscellaneous topics which are left over in the other subjects, right? Let's begin with today's session. Today we are going to take up 3 articles which are very much important to the UPSC examination. That is, first article that we'll be taking up is understanding India's ethanol blending policy. That is, India has advanced the targets of the blending of ethanol with respect to 20% in the petrol by 2025. Earlier, the dates were around 2030. So this is some advancement which took place, why we went in for advancement and what are the reasons and what promises did we made and why the cabinet has passed this particular policy. Secondly, another article which we'll be taking up is the potential of drought. So there is a report that has come up, that report which says that India's vulnerability to droughts, which is given by the UN under the United Nations Convention for Combatification of Deserts, right? So this was one of the triplets of the United Nations 1992 Rio Earth Framework. We'll try to understand the background. We'll also try to understand the various types of droughts, and we'll also try to understand other aspects with respect to India's conditions with respect to droughts. And the third article that would be taking up is Pangong Tso Bridge construction in occupied territory. Ye issue kya hai, and with respect to this, what are the mapping point of view se humko ye kya yaad rakhna chahiye? These aspects will be taking up, right? Let us quickly begin with our first article. First article talks about India's vulnerability to drought, right? Now, what does the recent drought in the numbers report tell us? And secondly, the United Nations is planning to combat the effects of such dry spells. If you have come across in the recent times, there has been so much of talks with respect to climate change, and there are so much of talks with respect to the droughts, and especially with respect to India. India, it is said that 60% of the total landmass of India is one or the other point of time. In the next coming decade, it is going to experience droughts and seasonal droughts, and the rate of increase it is going to experience is little more worrisome, right? So let us quickly try to understand, firstly, the nuances of this article, right? So we'll now try to understand, firstly, the genesis of the program of United Nations Convention for the Combatification of to combat the desertification. So if I ask you a question, what exactly is a drought? Can you tell me? Or else, what exactly is a desertification? Desertification hota hi kya hai? What exactly is a desertification? Can you try to guess what exactly is desertification? Right? See. Before we get into this article, firstly, you need to understand few terms, right? The terms here is desert, desertification, and land degradation. Your deserts are not the same with respect to desertification. Land degradation, kai reasons ki karan ho sakta hai, and the same land, when it is turned out to be unproductive, it is also considered to be a desertified land, right? Here I got a reply from Amulya, which says that a barren land which is lack of water availability. Yes, that is also one of the form of desertification. Increasing droughts, this is said by Gopi, right? So let us quickly delve into the definition here. In literal terms, the definition here means loss of productivity of soil as a consequence of, the definition says that the loss of productivity of soil. Now, this loss can happen due to various reasons, right? Loss can happen due to various reasons, or due to the degradation, or due to persistent dryness. It can be due to persistent dryness, or it can be due to degradation of the land. Now, persistent dryness can be because of lack of availability of water or improper rainfall, or it is because of barren leftover lands. And the other way is that degradation due to salinity ho sakta hai, or else because of the lack of improper water management system bhi ho sakta hai. Like this, the reasons can be various aspects, but the primary reason, if you look into, it is either a natural reason, or it can be natural cause, or it can be anthropogenic cause. Anthropogenic means human causes, right? Either it can be due to natural cause, or it can be due to anthropogenic cause. Now, if you look into the natural cause, the major reason is the climate change. And this climate change is because of the increase in the greenhouse gases concentration, right? We'll try to understand the process also, how the greenhouse gases are increasing the advancement of droughts in the atmosphere, right? And secondly, with respect to the anthropogenic reasons is excessive utilization of water, or excessive utilization of availability of land, और इनकी जितनी potential होता है land का, उससे ज़्यादा अगर आप land को utilize भी करो, तब भी there is a vulnerability of drought with respect to hydrological droughts and meteorological droughts, right? So in this report, it clearly says that the man is both a victim and a cause. Man is both the victim and the cause for the degradation of the land. So man, he himself or she himself is a cause, because they started to degrade the land by overexploitation of the land. When they start to degrade a patch of land, it is this land which will make them victims. How? Victims by reducing the productivity of the land. When the productivity of the land is reduced, at the same time, their socio-economic abilities to generate revenue also goes down, and all over it will impact the food security of the nation, right? I hope this point is clear. Now come back to the natural causes. In the natural causes, the biggest threat is the change in the climate change. This climate change is because of the greenhouse gases. Now, what are the greenhouse gases? Greenhouse gases are these gases which are naturally present within the atmosphere. Examples are your carbon monoxide, it can be carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, or SF6, or PFC, even methane, right? So these are the gases. Agar inki concentration, if you start to increase, then also this will lead to the formation of the droughts. We'll try to understand the principle behind the formation of the droughts, and this report exclusively mentions because of the long wave and terrestrial long wave radiations which are exhibited by the terrestrial land, and at the same time long wave radiations that comes from the earth that are being trapped by the greenhouse gases, right? See here, understand this phenomena. If this is our earth and this is the sun, when it generates rays, the rays which will come and reach the earth, they come and reach in the form of the short wave radiation, right? And when the earth gets heated, it will start to radiate certain rays, and these rays are in the form of long wave terrestrial radiation, right? The incoming solar radiations, that is from the sun, are of the form of short wave radiation, and when the earth gets heated, it radiates the long wave terrestrial radiations. So our greenhouse gases has the potential to absorb both the short wave radiations and the long wave terrestrial radiation, right? So if the temperature of the atmosphere is somewhere around 15 degrees Celsius or 20 degrees Celsius, it means to say that the rays that are coming from the sun do not directly heat the atmosphere. It is the rays that come and heat the earth first, and this earth starts to radiate energy, and this energy starts to heat the atmosphere, right? Similar way, if the concentration of the gases that are present in and around the earth, if this is your earth's atmosphere, in the earth's atmosphere, there are certain concentration of gases, that is 78% nitrogen, there is carbon dioxide, there is oxygen. Likewise, there are also greenhouse gases which help the earth to maintain its annual average temperature of 15 degrees Celsius. So if you look into the troposphere, above the troposphere, there is a sphere called stratosphere, and in this stratosphere, there are ozone, right? And this ozone will help to maintain the temperature of the earth that is required. Had if the ozone layer is not there above the earth, what happens? Our earth will be somewhere around minus 30 to 35 degrees Celsius on an average, right? Because of this earth ozone layer, this ozone layer helps us in managing the earth's average temperature. Clear? This is the primary fundamental aspect one has to know. And any changes in the concentration of the greenhouse gases, it will deplete the ozone layer, right? Now ozone is O3, right? This O3, which is present in the ozone layer in the stratosphere, in the morning times when there is 240 nanometers, say agar short wavelength radiation hai, the oxygen can be converted, the oxygen will start to break down, right? Similarly, these oxygen molecules, when they combine together to form O3, that is ozone, this ozone will be formed in the stratosphere, right? Ozone will be formed in the stratosphere, and this stratosphere layer, during the morning times, what happens is that this ozone can also get disintegrated into O2 plus O during daytime, because the terrestrial radiation, the long shortwave radiations that are coming from the sun are very intensive and they can actually break down the ozone, right? So when this ozone is broken down, O2 plus O during the night time, in the absence of the light, that is photo disassociation, which happens, that means it breaks down the ozone, and during the absence of the light, this O2 plus O again combines to form O3, and this is a natural process that is happening in the stratosphere, in the part of the ozone, right? But by we increasing the concentration of the greenhouse gases like carbon monoxide, SF6, PF6, or nitrous oxide or volatile organic compounds, these compounds, when they enter into the upper reaches of the atmosphere, during the morning time, when the O2 plus O, that is O3, when it is broken down, this oxygen molecule and the free radicals of the O molecule, they will start to bind up with chlorine. Either it can bind up with chlorine, fluorine, or other volatile organic compounds, because of which it will not convert, the reverse process of converting back to the ozone is not taking place, because of which the thinning of the atmosphere is taking place with respect to the ozone. Thinning of the atmosphere, right? Thinning of the atmosphere, ozone thinning means, it literally means to say that the ozone layer, जो layer होता है, if you start to measure from the ground से लेकर tropopause above, if you measure how much amount of ozone thickness is present, so over a period of time, this ozone thickness is reducing, right? So the thickness of the ozone reduces as and when the ultraviolet rays from the sun, when they come, they can easily pass through when the thickness is less, and they can directly come and reach onto the earth, right? The ultraviolet rays, they can pass through this particular region when the ozone thickness is less. So that is why, and these ultraviolet rays, when come and hit onto the body of individuals or species, what happens is that they starts to break down the amino acids and cells within our body, right? Let me quickly revise this topic to you so that it will be very much important in understanding the further problems of the drought here. See, Earth, there are shortwave terrestrial radiations, shortwave solar radiations that comes from the sun. It will heat the earth, and then earth will start to generate long wave radiations. These long wave radiations are absorbed by the greenhouse gases, and your greenhouse gases has the potential to absorb both long wave and short wave, because of which the earth average temperature is maintained. And as and when we increase the concentration of the greenhouse gases and we start to increase the carbon into the atmosphere, the entire Earth's atmosphere starts to variate, because of which our temperatures are increasing, and this led to the formations of the climate change, right? When there is an increase in the temperature, on an average, the water that is present on the earth, it starts to expand. The glaciers that are there, they starts to melt. So this is the reason why there is extreme activities with respect to climate. So one of the reasons for the formation of the droughts is that whenever these incidences are happening, when we increase the concentration of the carbon, similarly, it is also impacting the drought formation. Now let us try to understand the linkage between this particular climate change and linking with the droughts. The vulnerability to the droughts. See, this vulnerability to the droughts is that whenever there is an increase or changes in the climate patterns, it will impact the rainfall. Right? Rainfall, if there is any variation, it will also lead to the canals, dams, or rivers. Water concentration can be dropped, because of which the groundwater table cannot recharge, and this will lead to the drought-like situation. Now, this is one of the reasons, and the other reason is that anthropogenic activities. Anthropogenic means individuals like you, me, whatever we do on a day-to-day basis. If we start to increase the concentration of plastic and non-biodegradable elements into the atmosphere, and we start to raise the carbon, or if we start to use the land for various other purposes, instead, a land has the potential to grow only certain amount of crops or certain types of crops. If you start to grow some other crop in that particular type of field where the water intensity or the capability of that crop is more, so that is when your land will get again degraded. Right? Come back. See here. Right now, the current examples is that if you have this patch of land, and this patch of land has a temperature of somewhere around 20 degrees Celsius and have a good rainfall of 100 odd centimeters or 150 odd centimeters, in this rice cultivation is possible. But if you start to grow some other crops which are more water intensive, then this particular piece of land will get degraded. That means choosing of the right crops is also very, very important. Let us try to understand a real-time example of case study. For example, back in 2018, what happened is that in the state of Maharashtra and in the state of Uttar Pradesh, there has been intense droughts with respect to there has been very big drought prone regions that have been developed in certain parts of India. That is because of excessive cultivation of the sugarcane. So sugarcane in the year 2018 and 2017, beyond its capacity, the farmers started to grow. Beyond the land capable capacity, the carrying capacity of the land is only a limited. So the farmers started to grow excessive cultivation of sugarcane in these areas. When there is sugarcane that is planted, sugarcane requires good amount of water. So because of the improper rainfall in that area, the sugarcane crop also has the capability to suck up all the water that is present in this region. And if you start to grow this sugarcane crop, if you plant it today, only after 18 months, somewhere around 16 to 18 months ke baad, you have to harvest it. That means you have to cut down. So when you have to cut it down for almost 12 to 16 months, one single crop on a daily basis, it is utilizing the water. So there is summer season in the meantime, there is winter season, again a summer season. That means this crop will see 2 summer seasons or sometimes 3 summer seasons. So during that 3 summer seasons, if this crop start to intake all the water that is available in this region, what happens? It will lead to the formation of droughts. This is one of the reasons with respect to the non-mismatch or mismatch of the crops growing. Similarly, if you look into the other aspects of the drought-prone regions, it can be because of one, lack of availability of rainfall. That is how the soil gets to dry and its soil starts to break up, right? And the other form of drought, which is mainly because of the alkalization or salinization. If there are areas where the evaporation is more than the precipitation, like the formation of deserts, most of the desert areas where the evaporation jo hota hai, this evaporation is more than precipitation. What happens? The water that is available in that area, it starts to evaporate more, and the rainfall that has to happen, that is less. So there is more evaporation, only the fresh water will evaporate, and all the impurities, they will start to deposit down. That is when you get to see this drought, right? This is saline drought. Clear? This is saline drought. And secondly, if you look into other aspects of the various forms of the drought, it will be the overutilization of the land with respect to the formations of waterlogging activity, right? Waterlogging activity will also lead to the formations of the drought prone areas, right? The next here is, I have a question from Gopi Meg. Water table also decreasing in the northern states due to rice cultivation. Yes, see, every land has certain capabilities. If you start to stop that capabilities, or if you exceed those capabilities, definitely there is going to be a problem. Whether it is a cultivation of rice or it is cultivation of wheat, then land will start to degrade. Now, if there is no proper drainage here, see, if there is no proper drainage, the water that is left over here will start to degrade the soil. It will increase the salinity and it will also decrease the productivity. Every soil has certain components like nitrogen, it has some phosphorus, or it has some magnesium. So these elements which are essential for the formation of the growing of the crops, they will not be growing in a right manner, right? So you have to understand that these are the biggest problems in the formations of the drought. Secondly, it does not mean that if there is enough availability of water, it will also lead to the droughts. See, if you have more water also, it will create droughts. If it will be less water also, it will create droughts. Now, proper utilization of water should be there with respect to the land. That is when it is considered to be the right utilization of land, right? And there was a case study that in the areas of the northern part of India, especially the Punjab region, Uttar Pradesh region, where the wells are less. For example, imagine this piece of land is there, and in this piece of land, if you might have had a small well, okay, wells, and if you can grow cattle, don't you think that they will be helpful? Cattle and the well will have the capacity to sink in the excess amount of water, and it will start to regenerate or regrow the it will start to regenerate and restore the groundwater table, right? Clear? So imagine this land, if you had a well, it will suck in all the water, and then right utilization of water can be used with respect to the crop that can be grown. So similar kind of entities, in order to protect the soil health card. Soil health card is a program in which the government of India has come up in order to deal with the problems of the excessive malnourishment of the soils, right? Amulya Agarwal asks a question here, sir, with excess utilization of water, how it leads to drought? See, Amulya, imagine this is what is the excess utilization of the water, right? So every soil has certain minerals like phosphorus, nitrogen, or even magnesium. So when these minerals, if you start to use more water, they will start to disintegrate. So the plants which are capable of absorbing only certain elements of water, if they have excessive water, they cannot also survive. Drought means there are different types of drought. So firstly, you have to understand the types of drought, then your confusion will be gone. See, how many types of drought do you think are there are studied with respect to geography or environment in terms of dealing with the problems of drought? Do you know how many types of droughts are there? How many types do you think? See, there are 5 different types of droughts, right? There are 5 different types of droughts. Drought doesn't mean that there is no, only if there is no water, then it is drought. It's not like that. Your drought can be if there is excessive amount of water also, if that water cannot be utilized by the land, or if the land is spoiled, if the land is no longer in a position to grow crops, then also it is considered to be a desertified land, right? For example, the first type of drought is meteorological drought. In the meteorological drought, it is purely related with the rainfall. See here, this is rainfall is less, then it is considered to be a meteorological drought. And in this meteorological drought, there is certain amount time period that will be taken in, and in that time period, it will be considered for the drought. That is called meteorological drought. And the second type of drought is hydrological drought. Now, hydrological drought refers to the water supply in our rivers, lakes, aquifers. Aquifers are nothing but under the ground. There will be a bowl or a big basin where the water is stored. That is called aquifers. Only if your bore goes into that area, your bore will be giving water. If it goes into some rocky area, you won't get that water, right? So hydrological drought means if your rivers are dried up, if your lakes are dried up, or any aquifers, if they should have certain amount of water, if they are not having, then also it is considered to be an hydrological drought. And the third type of drought is agricultural drought. See, agricultural drought occurs when the water storage significantly damages or destroys the agricultural crops, right? Suppose, look here, agricultural drought occurs when a water shortage significantly damages or destroys the agricultural crop. It can be because of various reasons, right? It can be because of various reasons. If there is shortage of water, then it will lead to the drought. And the fourth one is ecological drought. See, here in the ecological drought is mostly defined by the type of drought and refers to the widespread ecological damages which are caused by the lack of moisture within the atmosphere. If there is not enough moisture that is present, or within the soil where the organisms, most of the organisms live or dependent upon the grass, if those microorganisms are not able to survive because of the lack of moisture within the atmosphere or within the soil, then it is considered to be ecological drought. And the last type of drought is nothing but socio-economic drought. Now, this drought refers to when a water shortage, agar kabhi water shortage hai, which affects supply and demand of the drought communities or commodities, such like water ho gaya, food grains ho gaya, fish ho gaya, inki shortage, if there is this kind of shortage, and this shortage will lead to the, this shortage is because of the water, lack of water, then it is considered to be social drought, right? So these are the types of drought. Drought alone does not mean lack of availability of water. Even if there is water, if the land is not in a position to utilize this water, or if this land is not in a position to use it for the purpose of growing crops, then also it is considered to be a drought, right? I hope you're clear with the definition. Now, if you're clear with this, then you will be able to understand the other concepts which I have taught you earlier. Come back, right? So in India, I've already told you that because of growing of the sugarcane, then these are the areas where drought has been seen. So at this point of time, Latur was one of the area in Maharashtra. What happened is that train of water has to be transported for their survival. A train from Maharashtra, Nagpur, or some other states and other different places, train cannons, the entire cannon where the oil used to be transported, those kind of transportations has been taken for the utilization of those crops, right? This is one of the reason. And secondly, if you look into the causes for the formation, there are other causes. Other causes is that natural causes of the formation of deserts and droughts. See, most of the part of India, most of the part of the world where the western margins of the continents are always onto the western margins of the continents, if you look into, they will have deserts. Most of the western margins, always the deserts are present on the western margins only. See, on the western side, that is between 10 degrees north to 35 degrees north. This is the area, and 10 degrees south to 35 degrees south is the area where you get to see deserts, right? In India also there are deserts. Apart from Thar desert, there are other deserts in India. Do you know? Do you know the name of those deserts? Do you know the name of the deserts other than Thar desert in India? India also has other desert. Can you name it? Cold desert. Yes, Shilpa, you're very correctly told that India also has cold desert. Desert does not alone mean that it is a hot desert. There can be cold deserts, there can be hot deserts. So the formation of these deserts is mostly because of the hydrological drought. That means the latitudes of the 15 degrees north, 30 degrees north se lekar 30 degrees south ki beech mein, in these areas where the moisture, incoming moisture will be always on the eastern side. eastern side of the continents. Because of this eastern side of the continents will have enough rainfall. By the time the clouds reach the western side, they will be dead with the moisture. That is the reason why there are drought prone areas and there are desert areas to the west of the margins, western margins of the continents, right? Secondly, got it? Are you clear? Now in India, if you look into the India here, in India also there are cold deserts. The cold deserts are always towards the north of the Himalayas, right? Imagine, where exactly do you have this cold desert? Do you know? It is in Ladakh. In Ladakh, you have this cold desert. For example, if this is your India, your cold deserts are present in the northern region and in the Jammu and Kashmir, especially the parts of Ladakh and Spiti Valley. It is because it is these regions which are lying north of the Himalayas. They are series of hills, Himalayas, ranges of Himalayas are there. Now the monsoon winds that come, mostly they come from the southeast side. Okay? जो monsoon winds होते हैं ना, they come like this. They enter into the Indian subcontinent. When they enter into the Indian subcontinent, what happens is that these regions, by the time they ascend these mountains or hills of Himalayas, they already lost the moisture and there is no scope for this region to receive rainfall. And here it is at a greater height. ये काफी height के ऊपर है. Because of this, इतना height के ऊपर होने के कारण, the clouds that cannot reach this area and it is already cold. The temperature is somewhere around -15 degrees Celsius and -25 degrees Celsius in the month of January, February, and in the month of December. This is the reason why you get to see the cold deserts, right? Imagine if you had enough moisture in those deserts, what will happen? You can actually grow certain kinds of scientific elements, right? Crops grow kar sakte ho aap, right? You can grow some crops. What kind of crops? You can grow some orchid crops, right? Orchid crops grow kar sakte ho, right? Clear? Come back. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Okay, I'll be addressing right then and there. Now, let us look into the names of the deserts with respect to the mentioning of the reports. It is said that the deserts in the central part and the deserts on the western margin, mostly the report said that jitne bhi deserts hai, ek time pe these deserts were little more to the west. They started moving towards the east. They started moving towards the east. It doesn't mean that they started to walk. It means to say that the desertified areas are increasing over a period of time. The desertified areas are increasing over a period of time, right? How? That means the eastern part of the deserts are also experiencing no rains. Because of this, the areas are also considered to be desertified. Desertified meaning मैंने पहले ही बताया था. That desertified means loss of productivity of soil as a consequence of degradation. Now this degradation can be because of climate change. Mostly it is an anthropogenic climate change. Climate change कोई नया बात नहीं है. Since the origin of this earth, our climate has been changing over a period of time. But that was a very, very slow process. काफी slow चलते थे. But अभी क्या हो गया? This climate started to change with respect to the rapid expansion, right? Why? Rapid rate पे change हो रहा है. How? It is because this climate started to change because of the anthropogenic activities. By inducing, we started to burn more fossil fuels. इतने fossil fuels burn किया since the 19th century that we actually accentuated this climate change by almost 5,000 years. जितने time 5,000 years में होना था, that we have already accentuated in just a matter of 2 centuries, 200 years में. Imagine if we start to burn the fossil fuels at this rate, in the next 2100, by the end of 2100, it is said that the amount of drought prone areas which you see across the world, they will be increased by 5 times. Matlab 5x. So if imagine if that is the situation, what happens in that kind of situation? The entire world, jitne bhi areas hai, they will be experiencing the food security, lack of food. They will not have proper food, enough food nahi hoga. When there is no food, it will lead to war-like situations, fightings, economic disparities, economic problems, socio-economic inequalities, and it will lead to climate refugees. Okay, climate refugees means they have to migrate. People need to move from one place to another place for their survival. Our food habits has to change. Our living standards has to go places. It has to change. So these are some of the examples which has mentioned by those reports. And look into the examples of the, look here, the examples of the deserts across the world. There are some names you need to remember. Deserts may, if you see, just a minute guys. Okay, Thar Desert, which is in India, right? It is in India. Taklamakan Desert, it is in the Central Asia. Gobi Desert, it is in Central Asia. And Great Sandy Desert, it is in Australia. Kalahari Desert and Namibia Desert, it is in Africa. Sahara Desert, it is in Africa. Negev Desert is in central part of the Arabia, right? And there are other deserts, Mojave Desert and Atacama Desert. So these deserts, please make sure to remember or at least try to map it. If this will be, you can download it from the Telegram channel of Raj Malhotra IAS. Will be sharing it in some time. Okay, let's come back. Just a minute, guys. There's a problem with the board here. Okay. Now, there are some examples which have also been quoted, that is with respect to the rise in desertification areas, especially in Rajasthan. So if you have ever visited Rajasthan, especially the southwest Rajasthan, where the areas are near to the desert, what happens is that because of the climate variations, because of the unpredictable rainfall, if one starts to plow the areas near to the farm fields, so there should actually be some kind of rainfall that is expected in the month of July. Even to the Rajasthan अगर desert है, इनका मतलब ये नहीं है वहाँ पे rainfall नहीं होता, वहाँ पे भी rainfall होता है, but that rainfall amount is very less. How much amount of rainfall happens there? More evaporation takes place. जितना rainfall से ज़्यादा evaporation काफी ज़्यादा होता है, because cloud formation will be less in those areas, because of which sun will be direct and temperatures are extreme. So evaporation will keep on happening. Because of this evaporation, there will be dry lands. The lands are already dry. And if you start to plow those lands and waiting for the rain, if the rain do not come, because of that, the entire area, the plowed area and in and around areas will start to convert into a dusty areas. So Western Rajasthan is considered to be one of the world's most dustiest regions in the months of early monsoon period, even after the post monsoon period, if the monsoon fails, right? So this is also one of the reason for the desertification. And desertification ke liye ek aur reason ye hai, the report clearly mentioned that the biggest reason for the desertification is the ravines and gully erosions. Ravines and gully erosions are nothing but any land at times, if there is no proper vegetation that is present in that area, or if it is a loosely packed soil, jinka compaction, that means which are not completely binded together, these lands over a period of time, what happens? Small rivulets, when they started to generate, it will start to erode that particular land. Like that, agar aap Pan Singh Tomar movie dekhte ho, yeah, have you Vikram Singh Rathod, Rowdy Rathod movie? In that, mostly you get to see the Chambal ravines, Chambal ravine area. So they look like these areas where it is completely degraded, which is not suitable for the growth of cultivation. It is because of the soil and the drought prone areas only, right? And the other way around. Okay, here I have a question. Simran asked, sir, can floods lead to the droughts or not? See, I've given you 5 different types of droughts, right? Floods will also lead to droughts. It does not mean that they will not lead to droughts. Floods will lead to drought. What kind of drought you tell? Look at these definitions and you tell me what kind of drought it will lead to. Your floods will also lead to droughts. Floods will create waterlogging situations. When there is waterlogging, the soil gets degraded, salinity बढ़ जाती है, alkalinity, alkalization हो जाता है उस area में. Because of that, you will get droughts also. So that will be a drought area where if particular crop is not in a position to grow, it is an agricultural drought, right? Clear? It is an agricultural drought. Now, this particular report also has a mentioning of about the flash droughts. Flash droughts kya hota hai? Flash droughts means all of a sudden, look at the definition here first. Flash droughts are those that occur very quickly with soil moisture depleting rapidly. Imagine this year we have experienced many heat waves, right? Heat waves काफी ज़्यादा है. Because of this increase in heat waves, the amount of moisture that is present in the soil is excessively evaporated as compared to last year, right? And at times, if there is excess amount of sunlight for the next 1 week, all of a sudden the moisture that is present in the soil, it will evaporate very quickly, right? Until there is no rainfall, the moisture will completely evaporate. When this moisture is evaporated, the area will slowly convert into a desertified area. It is not a desert, but looks like a desert kind of conditions. When these conditions are met by one particular area, then it is called a flash drought. So this particular type of flash droughts in across the India, they are increasing over a period of time, right? Now, occurrences of these events. So earlier, until 1950, 1970s and all, this flash droughts used to happen very, very rarely. But these days, this flash droughts is a regular phenomena. The recent flash drought as a case study one has taken is the CNA, Northwest regions. Northwest regions में Central Northeastern region and the Northwest region. It is Northwest region where the flash droughts have increased over a period of time. Whenever there is a heat wave, it will also create a flash drought. That means within a short period of time, the drought started to develop, right? Now, apart from this, you already know the types of droughts. This is what is the report that has been talking about. The vulnerabilities of drought in India, they are increasing, and it has been derived by the UNCCD. UNCCD. UNCCD means United Nations Convention for Combatification of Deserts. This combatification of deserts came in the year 1992. Okay, 1992 में there has been 3 agreements that has been signed by the United Nations, and it has opened to sign for the other countries as well. What are those 3 agreements? Are you aware of these agreements? If you are aware, please comment in the comment section. See, those 3 agreements are United Nations Framework for Convention on Climate Change. Second agreement is United Nations Combatification for Deserts. United Nations Convention for Combatification of Deserts. And the other one is United Nations ka Convention on Biological Diversity. UNCBD, UNCCD, and UNFCCC. Today, the report that is given is, it is given by the United Nations Convention for Combatification of Deserts. Combatification of the deserts means you have to stop these particular areas from converting themselves into a desert, right? It is not that already desert area ho to unko change karna hai. No, it is not like that. It is you should stop these areas from converting themselves into a very fertile land or semi-arid areas into a very bad soil area or else drought prone areas. Clear? Now, this is our next article, Understanding India's Ethanol Blending Policy. See, India's ethanol blending policy, ethanol is one of the important component with respect to the UPSC. क्योंकि ethanol से हमें काफी कुछ फायदा होता है. पहली चीज तो ethanol एक biofuel है. You know what is biofuel? Biofuel is nothing but a fuel which is generated from the natural sources, from the living organisms or from those organisms which is considered to be non-fossil, right? So biofuel can be of 2 types. अगर आप wood and all, these things are also considered to be biofuel, but at the same time, if it is used in the liquid, then it is ethanol. That is liquid form में भी use करते, that is ethanol में. Now ethanol can be extracted from corn के through extract कर सकता है. It can also be from other crops like sugarcane also. Sugarcane का byproduct ethanol बन सकता है, right? Come. So this government, now if you look into, should explore few questions. Why does the government wanted to increase of ethyl alcohol in petrol? Why? Do you know the answer? Why does the government want to increase the ethyl alcohol in petrol? Why? If you know the answer, please comment down. See, ethyl alcohol जो है, we generally import 85% of the entire fuel dependence from the outside, right? We import our fuel from foreign countries. When we import these foreign countries import fuel, in order to reduce the dependence upon the fuel, we started to generate this biofuel within our country. Now, biofuel has one advantage. Ethanol has one advantage as compared to the general fuel. See, ethanol advantage is that ethanol completely combusts. 100% ethanol can be burnt out. But when you burn your petrol and diesel, it will not be 100% combustible. It is not 100% combustible, right? That's why it is environmentally friendly. So in the year 2018, the government of India has came up with the national biofuel policy. In that, the biofuel policy is to increase the ethanol blending by the year 2030. But day before yesterday, instead of the target year for 2030, we have reduced the target year to 2025. It is said that by 2025 itself, you start to generate the biofuel at a rate of 20% in the petrol. अगर आपको पेट्रोल आज जाके 1 लीटर की पेट्रोल आप भरवाते हो, उनमें भी कुछ ऐसा बायोफ्यूल होता है, right? From 2025, 20% of the total petrol India में जितने भी हैं, इनमें 20% will be biofuel, right? That is ethanol. Now let us try to understand what exactly is the biofuel and what are the generations of the biofuel. Biofuel मतलब living sources से more or less, right? At times it can be chemical sources also, and at times it is from various other sources. So there are generations in the development of this biofuel. The first generation, if you look into it, is directly extracted from the food related sources. जैसे corn हो गया, sugarcane हो गया, इनके directly you extract from them. The food eating crops, you are using it for the growing of, for the development of the biofuel. Now, we thought that this will impact the food security of India. That is when we started to go for the second generation of biofuel, which we said that we should extract the biofuel from the non-food utilization sources, such as wood, such as wastage. So sugarcane का जो byproduct होता है bagasse, that means when the sugarcane is crushed out, the remaining product that is left, now that product can also be used for the extraction of the biofuel, right? That means you should not use the crops directly for the usage of the fuel. And the third generation, over a period of time, we started to develop it from the algae या biochemicals or bioorganisms इनके through we started to generate. Now the fourth generation of the biofuels is from lab में अगर generate करते हो, then it is the fourth generation of biofuel, right? So अगर ethanol blending है, which generation of biofuel does it fall into? Which generation of biofuel? If you start to extract ethanol from sugarcane, then it falls into which generation of biofuel? Is it first, second, third, or fourth? First one, second one, third one, or fourth one? Which one? Ethanol blending, ethanol making from the biofuel. Amulya Agarwal says it is from the first generation, right? Okay, see, अगर हम कौन से generate करता है, it is from the first generation. Mostly ethanol is from the second generation. We do not generate directly from the food, but the food का byproduct से generate करता है, right? Which is a wastage of the sugarcane, right? Come back. So I've already told you ethanol is a hydrocarbon. That means these hydrocarbons, they completely combust as compared to the fuel. Fuel 100% combustible नहीं है, but ethanol is 100% combustible. Now ethanol can be sourced from sugarcane से भी source कर सकता है, molasses से भी source कर सकता है, maize and other food based industries, and it can be sustainable if we start to grow around these crops in a barren lands, right? the target, if you look into the history of the biofuel, in the year 2001 itself, we started this. We said that 5% of the entire fuel jo hai, that need to be blended with ethanol. That is considered as E5. Agar aap newspaper mein, if you started to see E20, E20 is nothing but ethanol 20. Ethanol 20 means 20% of the ethanol in petrol, right? 20% of ethanol in the petrol, that is called E20. Now, EBP means ethanol blending of the petrol program, and it started in the year 2002 with some union territories, around 9 states and 4 union territory ke saath it started to develop. But over a period of time, it is now estimated that by 2025, entire India has to use this bioethanol blending, right? Now, if you have a vehicle which has been purchased 10 or 5 odd years before, all of a sudden, if you started to change the fuel, don't you think that your vehicle will be affected? If not just your vehicle, entire India में कितने vehicles हैं? काफी ज़्यादा है. Only 12% of the vehicles in India are 4-wheelers. Rest 88% of the vehicles in India are 2-wheelers. And this number is very, very huge numbers. So all these engines which have been developed for the petrol based engines, if they started to use these engines for the bioethanol, then these engines will they will face certain kinds of problems. So here is a question from Gopi Megh. Sir, is rice reduce can be used for making ethanol? Yes, it can be used. जो पर्ली होता है ना, पर्ली, the crop residue which we generally burn it out, that also can be used for generating the bioethanol, right? Air pollution problem can be solved. Yes, already there are a couple of plants that have been set up by the Punjab government, but in the area mein jahan pe refined biofuel has been generated from the पर्ली crop, the पर्ली or the biofuel wastage, sorry, the residual wastage of the rice. Good point, Gopi. That is very good thinking, right? So I've already told you that engines will be impacted, right? Engines will be impacted, but they will be compensated with they should be compensated in one or the other form, right? That is the solution which we should talk about. Secondly, if you look into what is the international experience, आज तक ऐसा इंडिया कोई पहली country नहीं है which is going for biofuel. Already, with respect to the biofuels, there is Brazil, which has completely somewhere around 40% of their total vehicles are now running on the biofuel, because they grow large amount of sugar canes, or sugar cane का जो wastage से biofuel निकलता है, that has been used. So Brazil ऐसा country है, they from 2019 से लेकर whatever the vehicles that they are producing, they are completely biofuel combustible vehicles हो सकता है. That means even if you use 100% of the biofuel, those vehicles can run without any problems. So India has to adopt the way of the Brazil. This is what we have to learn from that. So apart from that, now what are the environmental costs? Environment से क्या problem हो सकता है if you start to use bioethanol? See, bioethanol अगर हम use करना start किया, तो it is a very good advantage. Firstly, it burns completely, and the commitments that India makes at the foreign with respect to the global climate change, that we are going to reduce this much of carbon in the country, those kind of targets can be easily met, and we can get a clean environment as compared to a earlier environment, right? Next, finally, the report of the, just a minute guys, the report of the energy economics and financial analysis. See, this energy economics and financial analysis एक report दिया था. In that 20% of the ethanol should be blended by the year 2025, and this is what India is moving in the directions of. So for this, it has said that 30,000 additional square kilometers of land need to be required. 30,000 additional square kilometers of land need to be required in order to meet the 2025 targets of the biofuel. ठीक है? That means bioethanol blending targets meet करने के लिए we should have 30k more square kilometers, right? Without which we cannot meet that. Now half of the land that need to be cultivated should be coming from these corn or maize cultivations, right? Apart from that, on the hind side, the first article which we have learned, that article in that report, it says that the amount of cultivable land which we generate every year, which we add every year, on an equal amount of land that is getting degraded into desertified lands, right? It means to say that jitne bhi naya patches of land we are going to generate, in an equal amount of land, due to the drought prone areas and degradation, ye jo land hai, that is no longer in a fertile state to convert to grow some plants. So that seems to be a very unrealistic targets with respect to the challenges. If you consider the reports of the Energy Economics and Financial Analysis and the report of the United Nations Combatification on Desert, that is UNCCDCA report, they are very contradictory reports, right? So if you take this as a fact and this as a fact, there is a big mismatch. For this, what we need to do, it is simply that instead of sourcing the bioethanol from these traditional sources, it is time for us for now to go into the lab mechanism and start to grow the fourth generation biofuels, bring in science and technology developments, technology adaptations hona chahiye, research start karna chahiye. That is how we can bring in the policy of bioethanol with 20% of blending, right? This is what with respect to these articles. And the other article which talks about the Pangongso, which I've told you in the first introductory here. See, with this, what we have to, for the UPSC examination, what we have to look forward is the location of the Pangongso Lake, right? So how many of you have been to Ladakh? If you have ever been to Ladakh, I'm pretty sure you might have visited this Pangongso Lake. So my question to you is Pangongso Lake a freshwater lake or a saltwater lake? Is Pangongso a freshwater lake or a saltwater lake? Is Pangongso a freshwater lake or saltwater lake? Yes, I got an answer from Gopi and Simran that it is a saltwater lake, right? So this is the Pangongso Lake, and this Pangongso Lake is the bordering area between India and China, right? On the southern side, our Indian troops lie. On the northern side, the Chinese troops lie. The current article which talked about is that there are some settlements that are present near to the Pangongso Lake, and that settlements are in problem, that if the permanent settlements, right? With this, our interest should be to look forward for the mapping. And secondly, it is a saltwater lake, guys. In spite of it is being in Himalayas, it does not mean that har ek lake jo Himalaya mein hota hai wo freshwater lake hai. Nahi hai. It is not a freshwater lake, it is a saltwater lake. If you know the reason for this saltwater lake, please comment down, right? And that's it for today, guys. And next Saturday we'll be coming up with more relevant articles, right? If you have any doubts, you can message me. You have my number. With this, if you have any doubts with respect to these topics, you can message me. And my name is Madhusudan Reddy. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Take care, guys. So Amulya has a question. Amulya's question here is that why the water of Ganga river system always remain cold whole year? See, Amulya, you have to understand that the source of this Ganga river are from Himalayas, right? The source of the Ganga river are from Himalayas. Himalayas have cold water, but the water of Ganga are not cold in the state of Bihar and in the state of the lower riparian states of Bengal. The Ganga water is not cold, right? Only it is cold until Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand ke baad it will be little warmer. In those states, the water comes from the Gomukh glacier, jahan se Gomukh glacier nikalta hai. That is a glacier melted water. That is why it generally has certain amount of coldness in it. Now Sahil has a question. Sir, anything can be done for the deserts which are already created? Yes. There is a desert called Gobi Desert. तो गोबी रिस्टोरेशन डेजर्ट एंड तकलमकान डेजर्ट, ये जो डेजर्ट्स है, especially the deserts in the Chinese region, they are converting the deserts into fertile soils by planting certain kinds of crops. See, desert soil is one of the fertile soil if given enough sufficient water, because it has all the nutrients that are required. It only requires water. But deserts are present in such climatic conditions where the evaporation is more than precipitation. If you start to give this precipitation through the form of canals or in any other forms, over a period of time, maybe down the line 100, 150 odd years, what happens is that the deserts over a period of time, they'll start to convert into a fertile lands with good precipitations, right? They can also be changed. There's potential to change the desert lands as well, right? Soil. So मेंस के लिए क्वेश्चन कैसे होगा इथेनॉल ब्लेंडिंग एंड ड्रॉट के टॉपिक से. From the mains point of view, the questions to the droughts can be from the United Nations framework for the Convention on CCD. It can be that India's land over a period of time are moving towards the desertification. What measures need to be taken, or justify kind of statements, or the blending of ethanol ke related, import and export ke related questions ho sakta hai, or else it can be with respect to the production challenges, or it can be with respect to the food security challenges. So multiple dimensional aspects say there can be questions, right? Thank you guys. See you next week.